Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
I'm Ritu Singh and you're watching Reporter's Diary. Straight to our top story this evening, the United States of America and China have agreed to put their trade tussles on hold. After spending months threatening to impose fresh duties on one another, both the countries have now agreed to call a ceasefire. Both Washington and Beijing issued a joint statement over the weekend. The statement highlighted that America would substantially reduce their trade deficit with China. There was, however, no commitment on cutting the gap by any specific amount. According to United States Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, US and China have decided to work on a wider trade agreement to address future trade imbalances. Now, the trade war ceasefire between China and the United States has promptly lifted investor mood in the international oil market. Brent crude has inched up 0.3% to nearly $79 a barrel, and it's a similar picture for WTI NYMEX, which is now at the $71 mark. However, for India, which imports over 80% of its crude oil requirement, this is bad news. The price of the Indian basket of crude oils has gone upwards of $72 a barrel in May, after rising to an average $69.30 a barrel in April of 2018. It had averaged $47.56 and $56.43 per barrel, respectively, during the last two financial years. The impact is being seen in petrol and diesel prices across the country, which now stand at all-time highs. So this rise in the price of petrol and diesel has also given rise to some pertinent questions. For example, with the Indian crude basket currently at around $72 a barrel, why are prices higher than when the Indian basket was nearly at $112 a barrel in 2011 and 12? Prashant is here to put the numbers in perspective. Prashant, where do the prices stand now compared historically?
You know, I've come back to this table and these numbers and how the numbers break up a couple of times over the last 2 years. So let's do this again, essentially because what we pay at the pump for petrol and diesel are at record highs. And this even as crude oil prices are nowhere near their record highs. I mean, we've touched $80, which is, I mean, a cyclical high, you can call it that, but nowhere near all-time high. So let's break this down. You look at the thing to focus on is row number 3 and 4. Excise, which is essentially what the government collects, central government collects, is 15 rupees 33 paise a litre. This used to be 3.5 rupees a litre when diesel prices in Delhi were 59 rupees a litre. I mean, this was in October of 2014. Back then, at 59 rupees a litre for diesel in Delhi, international oil prices used to be $100 a barrel. So look at the stark difference. You look at VAT. VAT varies. I mean, excise is steady across the country. VAT varies state by state. 16.75%, it used to be about 7% or so. So, I mean, even as international oil prices are $20 lesser than, I mean, the point that I've taken, which is October of 2014, what we pay at the pump is at an all-time high. Dealer commission has also gone up, but that, I mean, dealer costs are largely fixed. It doesn't really fluctuate with international oil prices. Let's look at petrol prices and how they are faring in Delhi. I mean, what we pay at the pump is at a record 77 odd rupees a litre. And again, the comparison is the last cyclical peak, which was about 76 rupees 10 paise a litre back in September of 2013. Again, you look at international oil prices, $80. It was $108 a barrel then. Excise, from 10 rupees, it's gone up to 20 rupees. You look at VAT, which is what the state collects, 12.7%. It's more than doubled to 27 odd percent, and dealer commission has also gone up as well. So, I mean, you know, and that's the reason why when you look at what the government is collecting, that has gone up. And that's the reason why the clamor that, well, you know, you raised excise as international oil prices were coming down. You did not pass the benefits on. But now as international oil prices are rising, why don't you pass it on? Can the government do it? I mean, if you ask economists across the board, the clear resounding answer is no. There is no fiscal headroom available. But even leave that aside, leave the macros aside, you look at the micros. For oil marketing companies themselves to be able to make marketing margins what they were making pre-Karnataka, I mean, elections when price hikes were stopped, you know, we need a price increase of between 4 and 5 rupees. I mean, we need an increase of 4 to 5 rupees. We are talking about a cut between whatever 2 rupees, whatever is being talked about, what the government can do. The last cut which the government effected was 2 rupees late in 2017. So I think, I mean, for all practical purposes, this is a pretty tough decision, and that's the reason why we're saying, I mean, it's between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the prices of petrol and diesel are touching record highs on the back of surging crude prices. So one way to control the spiraling cost of fuel is to reduce the excise duty that has been levied by the centre. But the government sources tell CNBC TV18 that a reduction of even 1 rupee per litre of fuel takes a huge hit on the government's revenue kitty. Sapna Das joins us on the details of the fiscal impact of any possible reduction. Sapna, how big would the loss be?
Well, the fiscal impact of any potential excise duty cut on petrol and diesel will be quite enormous for the exchequer. The numbers are more or less in public domain, 13,000 crores if they reduce the excise by 1 rupee on petrol and diesel, double that amount, 26,000 crores for the full financial year if it's a 2 rupee cut. So having said that, the question here now is that right at the beginning of the financial year, is the government, does the government have that kind of appetite to, kind of loosen its purse strings and pass on some relief to the consumers in terms of the retail price? Because that will help cool that off. So that's a big question right now. The second question, of course, also would be that what would be the quantum of the excise duty relief, if any, if that comes about? Because probably at this point in time, even a 2 rupee cut in excise, would that be too little, too late? That could be a question mark on that front. Anyway, this is a call that the government is still in the midst of taking a call on. So we just have to wait and watch. Apart from this, we also understand that probably if there's any tinkering in duties, it will have to be on the basic excise duty side, because that is also something shareable with the states. The road cess is something that the government is unlikely to touch. This is what we have been given to understand.
And on to the day's market action then. It was the 5th straight day of losses on Dalal Street. The Nifty slipped 0.75% and just about managed to keep its head above the 10,500 mark. The mid-caps continue to underperform its peers and lost 1.7% in today's trade. PSU banks were the outperformers, with the index rallying 3%, led by State Bank of India, and this was on the back of a successful takeover of Bhushan Steel by Tata Steel. Earlier today, the Financial Services Secretary Rajiv Kumar took to Twitter to share the details of how Tata Steel's takeover of Bhushan Steel has helped reduce non-performing assets of public sector banks. He tweeted, and I quote, "IBC is transforming credit culture in New India. About 35,000 crore rupees reduction of NPAs of PSBs in Bhushan Steel case. Reduction of NPAs in individual PSBs ranged from about 500 crore rupees to over 10,000 crore rupees," end quote. He went on to add, and I quote again, "Under IBC in Bhushan Steel, PSB's income of about 7,500 crores from write-back, future upside through over 6 crore equity shares acquired by PSBs. Decisive shift towards clean credit culture," end quote. And staying with Bhushan Steel, the National Company Law Tribunal has refused to stay Tata Steel's takeover of the debt-laden firm. Hearing a petition filed by Bhushan Steel's promoter Neeraj Singhal challenging the sale of the company, the tribunal issued notices to Tata Steel, the resolution professional of the company, as well as the committee of creditors. However, the tribunal did say that it did not want to stall the resolution process, adding that the process will be subject to the final outcome in this case. Talking to CNBC TV18 Sapna Das, Tata Steel's MD and CEO TV Narendran welcomed the NCLAT order. He also shared the details of just how Tata is going about this acquisition. Here's an excerpt.
The judges refused to stay, and we respect that. We're happy with that. Obviously, we would like to move on. We've already spent a lot of time and money in this. We've already paid the bankers. We moved into the assets, so we would like to move on. But I think there is a hearing now on the 30th. We'll wait for that, but we'll follow due process as we've done so far.
So now, what is the road ahead? I mean, in terms of the fact that the hearings will continue, how does it, where does it place you in terms of the management control?
Well, as far as we are concerned, we paid the banks and they've transferred the shares in our name. So
36,500 odd crore?
Yeah, absolutely.
Numbers again?
35,200 crores. So we paid the banks and the banks have transferred the shares in our name. So as far as we are concerned, we are now the owners of Bhushan Steel, and our teams have already moved into the multiple sites, and we are working with the local teams there. And I think the local teams have welcomed us. We are happy to be there. We are happy to work with them, and it's a good company which can do even better.
Right. In order to tackle the black money menace, the centre is taking stringent steps against shell companies. A government official tells CNBC TV18 that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs may move the amendments in Companies Act during the monsoon session. This to define shell companies in the Companies Act. Timsy Japuria joins us with more details on this story. Timsy, take us through what you've picked up.
Well, as you rightly mentioned, the government is moving ahead, and this time what they've decided is that they would soon move Companies Act amendments in the monsoon session for defining what could qualify as a shell company. Remember, as of now, there's no clear-cut definition of what is a shell company in the Companies Act, and this was leading to a lot of litigation, to a lot of confusion. A lot of genuine companies were earlier designated as shell companies, and they would then challenge the government in various courts. Now, apart from this, government, to have a clear-cut definition, had approached to all the key stakeholders for coming up with their suggestions, and what I pick up from sources is the fact that ED, DRI, FIU, IT Department, SEBI, SFIO have submitted their suggestions to the MCA on what could be defined as a shell company. Not just this, Ministry of Corporate Affairs is also going through global references and to see what could be a best possible definition that can be put in place. Now, some of the SOPs that government is planning to put while defining a shell company, what could designate as a shell company and what could keep a genuine company differentiated from a shell company. These includes companies with dormant accounts, not filing annual returns, without any physical address or without any business turnover. There are more SOPs that government is working on. There are about 18 sections of the Companies Act that the MCA is working on for amendments, which would help the government define a clear-cut definition of what could qualify as a shell company. The proposed shell company definition will now be submitted to Piyush Goyal, who has recently taken over as a temporary charge for Minister of Corporate Affairs, and by May end. And soon after his suggestions are incorporated, these final suggestions will go to the PMO, after which a proper amendments for the Parliament nod will be put in place. Back to you.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Russia's coastal city Sochi today. According to reports, the two leaders discussed key global and bilateral issues during their informal summit. Prime Minister Modi is in Russia only for 9 hours this summit at the invitation of President Putin. This summit comes close on the heels of a similar meeting the Indian Prime Minister had with China's President Xi Jinping last month.
लंबे अरसे से भारत और रशिया एक अटूट मित्र रहे हैं। लगातार हमारे बायलैटरल मीटिंग होती रहती है, लेकिन मैं राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का बहुत आभारी हूं कि उन्होंने एक इनफॉर्मल समिट के रूप में, इनफॉर्मल मीटिंग के रूप में मुझे निमंत्रित किया। हमारे लिए खुशी की बात है, चाहे SCO जिसमें आपने बहुत बड़ी भूमिका अदा की भारत को परमानेंट मेंबरशिप दिलाने में, चाहे ब्रिक्स समिट हो, चाहे सीकास हो, चाहे नॉर्थ साउथ कॉरिडोर की बात हो, हम मिलजुल करके एक के बाद एक अनेक मैकेनिज्म में साथ काम कर रहे हैं और सफलतापूर्वक आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं।
Kerala's health department has been put on high alert after 3 people reportedly died in Kozhikode due to a deadly virus called Nipah. The virus, which has high fertility rates, spreads mainly through bats, pigs and other animals. The Union Health Ministry has rushed a team to the state to cope with this outbreak. Neetu Raghukumar joins us now with more details. Neetu, what is the situation on the ground now?
High alert in Kerala after 3 deaths have been confirmed due to the Nipah virus. Now, the 3 of them belong to one family, 2 brothers and their aunt from Kozhikode in Kerala. There are several other cases of suspected deaths also, at least 7 suspected deaths. The reports are awaited of this. The nurse who treated them also died last night, but this has not yet been confirmed whether it's due to the Nipah virus. The state government, especially the health department, has swung into into action. There was a high-level meeting in Kozhikode district chaired by the health minister herself. The health minister and the excise and labour minister, who's also the local MLA for Kozhikode, is stationing in Kozhikode district and overseeing the activities. Now, it's basically 3 types of surveillance that is being conducted by the department. Now, the primary carrier of this Nipah virus is the fruit bat. So, basically, doctors and the health department is issuing advisory telling people not to have fruits, especially guava and mango, that has been contaminated by the bats, and also be careful about using water from open wells, because there are chances that the bats can pee into this water. Now, the secondary carrier of this virus is basically the domestic animals as well as pigs. Surveillance is carried out in both these areas. Now, the health department is also monitoring all those people who have come in contact with the confirmed deaths as well as the suspected cases. They have taken them into isolation, those who are showing any symptoms, and is conducting the surveillance as well as carrying out the treatment. Now, though the 3 deaths have been confirmed in the Kozhikode district, for the entire state, the advisory has been issued. Now, the symptoms of this are similar to Japanese encephalitis. Basically, they show high fever with headache, nausea or vomiting, abdomen pain, even an altered mental state, unconsciousness, dizziness, nausea are all associated with the Nipah virus.
All right, Neetu, thank you for joining in. In fact, the Kozhikode district collector has just confirmed that the death toll in this case has now reached 6. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Reporter's Diary.